Hey guys, good morning. How are y'all? Let me finish putting on a couple more um, situations, recordings, just to back up all the backups. Good morning. I am trying to be consistent with life. So here we are again, the third day. So proud of myself. Uh, Today, I want to talk about. I guess I didn't realize how hard it is to share our stories. When I started sharing mine 22 years ago, I really just had Joyce Meyer to look up to. I could not believe that she was sharing some of the things that she had went through. Like, what about the feelings of the people that she's talking about? Like, I couldn't wrap my head around how someone could tell somebody else's business. But then the more that I started sharing mine and the more I started like writing my story down, is all of our stories affect other people. All of our stories have other characters. And at the end of the day, the other characters are what makes up who we are. And so I just think that I've been thinking the last couple of days, like I really do feel like my calling is to help people share their story in this next season of my life. Because I've shared mine, I've done that, and I'm still going to continue to share my story, but I really think it's helping people overcome the barriers of sharing our story. Especially when you're from a small town like I was, it's so hard to share our stories because we're so afraid of what Susie Q's going to say down at the local gas station, because we already know, we've already spent our whole life watching them talk about everybody else. So we know that we're going to be the conversations if we give them more information. We know, and that was my biggest hurdle. And honestly, another biggest hurdle with mine is making sure that I was healed from the trauma, making sure I was healed from what these people have done, because I never want to share anything that's out of my pain. I only want to share my story out of my healing. And that's a key component to sharing our story. Because if we're sharing out of our pain, we're going to say things that hurt other people on purpose. We're going to want to slander somebody else's name. And our stories aren't about other people, they're about what God has done in our life. So we have to make sure that we're sharing our stories from, a pure place. And I think that's so important because there's not a lot of people who actually share their story. We have a lot of crap online. We have a lot of stuff coming at us, but true testimonies of what the Lord has done is not very often. And I look back to our testimony with Drew. Why is that not viral? Why is everybody in our hometown not sharing that? I'm not coming down to condemn you. But at the end of the day, we're so frustrated that everybody in our small town ends up on drugs. We're so frustrated and mad that they're out sleeping with the town. But when they actually share their testimony, it scares us to death. It scares us. You know why it scares us? Because deep down, we're afraid of what people will think. And I look at her sharing her testimony, and I look at her sharing the post, and I look at the likes and the comments, and it's beautiful. People are encouraging her. People are asking her to go speak. But I want more from our communities. I want other people sharing it. I want other people not being afraid of vulnerability. I want other people, commenting under. I want thousands of people. Well, there's not thousands of people in our town. I want at least 100 comments on Drew's post, because at the end of the day, I bet you there were 100 people talking trash about her and her addiction. And that's how I feel about it. I am so passionate about people's story. And I see, and I've lived it. I know why people don't. Because of fear of what people will think. There's a few reasons why we don't. We're fear of judgment. We don't want to be vulnerable. We have so much stigma and shame from the people talking trash about us and inside of us alone that we're just paralyzed to even share our story. It's not society's norm. Like, you just don't do that. We have lack of confidence, and we have just unresolved emotions that are around those certain things. My nose is running. I just think we have to do better, because at the end of the day, it is the Lord's testimony. The Lord is going to do what he wants. And that's what I had to understand. No matter if I spoke on who I spoke about on my testimony, the Lord, if that person heard it, if that person's offended, the Lord is bigger than that. I had siblings coming at me, cussing me out, saying that they couldn't believe that they thought I was better than them when I came out with my story. The most hurtful things from the people closest to me. I had to overcome that, and so will everyone else that ever shares their testimony. Because at the end of the day, people can only handle what they're comfortable with. And that's not our fault, but it is our fault if we remain silent on what God has done. Because I think God is calling us to share a testimony. I think he wants us to be out there and share what he has done in our lives. Because us sharing our testimony keeps us from going back. Because when I just see these little ducks, like a big mama duck and all these little ducks trailing, and they're walking behind their mama duck. The mama duck's going to be so careful what she's doing in front because she don't want to leave her ducks astray. And the same goes for when we're leading people in our testimonies. And, the more people that get behind you and that you're inspiring, the less likely you're ever going to go back to that lifestyle, because it's more than just about you. And, addiction and rebellion and all that is such a rooted in selfishness. So at the end of the day, when we get unselfish, when we get out of ourselves and we start sharing our testimony, that's actually when God can use us the most, because we're unselfish. We're actually caring about other people. And I think that's so beautiful. And at the end of the day, I just think too, what if our truth that we're sharing, our testimony, which could be sensitive to some people because it's about them, what if that's the one thing that transforms them? What if God says, I'm going to face this person with the truth of the hurt that they did and accountability, so much so that they repent and turn to the Lord? My God's bigger than that. Religion isn't, but my God's bigger than that. And I think that's so beautiful that he can, and he may want to do it. But it takes some obedient souls. The benefit of us sharing our testimony is connection. We're going to connect with people that are, oh my gosh, me too. I can't believe she just said that. I struggled with that. Or I felt abandoned. I felt rejected. So many people are going to feel thankful that you want to. I've already seen it on Drew's posts. Like, people are commenting like, Drew, you've inspired me. I want to share my story. Like, how awesome is that? The connections, Drew, do you want to come speak here? Do you want to share your testimony? Like, open doors that just one testimony will open. I think it's beautiful that the healing that it creates with us, like, it heals us, it heals other people. Even in the only time healing happens is when we're uncomfortable. Think about a scab. When it gets crusty and itchy and everything like that, that's when it's the most uncomfortable, but that also is the time that it's healing the most. So I want to encourage you, like, share your story, get uncomfortable. You're going to inspire people. I've already said that. You're going to promote change. I've already said that. You're going to build communities, which is the connection. You're going to encourage authenticity in people that you will never even know. Like, the thing is, what's crazy about hearing Joyce Meyer all those years is, like, if she could be such a bold faith person and not care what anybody thought of her, I knew I could be too. And that I knew first time I heard her story, God said, I felt like God said, you're going to be the next Joyce Meyer. And I've done that. It may not look the same, but I've done that for 22 years. I've shared my story. I've told people what God has done. And now I really, really want to help people. I think it's my turn to help people share theirs. Because honestly, I didn't know it was such a problem. I just all thought everybody would have a big mouth like me and just be out there just blah, 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 blah about their story. But so many people are sitting in silence because of fear. And I get it. Because we want the people closest to us to be proud of us. Because we have disappointed them so long in addiction that when we actually turn it around and we want to share our story of what God has done, we then again feel like we're disappointing them. Because it could be embarrassing. It could, put personal trauma out there. What do you think Joyce Meyer's dad thought when she was out there telling the freaking world that he raped her 200 times? Well, I'm sorry, he didn't get a say in it. He didn't get an opinion when he chose to mess up his authority as a parent. And at the end of the day, grace is a beautiful thing, but we have to share our truth. We have to. No matter how, who it hurts. And again, I'm not going to get in this bashing session. You got to be healed before you're sharing your truth. I'm not saying you got to be perfect, but you got to be healed. You can't, it's not about, I'm going to hurt my parents for what they have done to me. No. I think there's grace in the vulnerability. I think there's grace in the authenticity. But God knows what that other person wants to hear or needs to hear, or they could be in their hotel room about to kill themselves, and your story can come across the screen and their lives could be changed forever just by you being brave enough to share your story. So I just want to encourage y'all, like, man, we all have devices, we all have cameras, we all have phones. We all have everything we need to share what God has done. And I'm excited for the future. I think our testimonies are going to be rampant. I think it's such a beautiful thing. I'm going to do my part doing it anyway. Beautiful scripture that Drew posted this morning. I love it. It is Romans 8:28. And we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them. And that just hit me so much of like, we're not God, and he's going to work it all out for good, every bit of it. And things that I couldn't imagine he would ever work out in my story, he has. And it's been beautiful. And the same will go for you. You just have to believe it. You just have to honestly choose that for you. And it's the darkest parts. Like, it's the deepest, darkest secrets that sometimes hold on to us until we share that. And, yeah, you shouldn't be hanging out all your dirty laundry just to praise the dirt report, but you should be out there sharing, you know, the dark, the deepest. God, people won't see how much light you have in your life unless you share what darkness you've come from. Why do you think everybody that has this radical testimony that comes from drugs and alcohol and drug dealers and, almost death to God in the light has such a powerful testimony? It's because we've seen hell. It's because we know that if God didn't save us, we wouldn't be here. And in that moment, that's where we should share every bit of what God has done in our lives, because that's so powerful. So powerful. And I love it. So I'm excited. I hope y'all are too. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say today. I have a couple more guests coming. I got them lined up. I just have to make time for them. I'm going to try to do a podcast every day, like during the week, maybe. We'll see. I'm not going to hold myself to it because that just stresses me out because, I like to be a free bird. I would like to know if y'all have any comments or questions or, things that y'all want to hear about, or tips on how to share your testimony or what makes it easier. Yeah, I'd like to share all that. So, because there's sometimes things that you think of that you shouldn't share at that time. As you can see, my mind just went there. But anyway, yeah, if you have any questions, I would love to answer. If you want to share your testimony on the show, I would love to have you on that. I'm excited. It's been fun so far. See where God takes it. I'm just being obedient. So, thanks, guys.